Hello and welcome back to the Ground Up Advanced Flight Tutorials. Thank you very much for joining me in this video and this lesson today. It's been a little bit of time, but as you can see, the lessons are going to be back and hopefully they should be back and better than ever. I am now in X-Plane 11, which is where I'm going to be doing the lessons from now on, hopefully. At least most of them, and this is a good time to actually use one of the features of X-Plane 11 to do today's lesson. And today's lesson is going to be all about night flying, and specifically we're going to be looking at the lighting systems at an airport. So if we just go up for now and have a look around, you can see the lighting systems at the airport. We're at Echo Golf November X-Ray as usual, but we are going to be moving around today. So we're going to start here and then we're going to go to Echo Golf Lima Lima. Then we're going to go to, in fact from here we might go to Coventry Airport. I can't remember the identifier for Coventry. We might have a look there, or have a look at Echo Golf Hotel India, which is Southampton. Then we'll look at Echo Golf Lima Lima. Then we're going to go right across the pond and we're going to go over to Kilo Juliet Foxtrot Kilo. Yeah, that's right. Kilo Juliet Foxtrot Kilo, KJFK. That's in New York, because the lighting systems are different around the world, somewhat anyway. But let's get straight on with this. Before I continue though, if you haven't seen lesson number 2, where I talk about all the airport markings, make sure you go see lesson number 2. That is really important that you go and see that, otherwise you're not going to understand what exactly I am showing in this video. Also, if you haven't yet supported me on Patreon, please do consider supporting me on Patreon. That's www.patreon.com/ecgadget. The $5 donation does give you access to the Flight Sim Tutorials channel on the Discord server, as well as the Patreon exclusive channel on the Discord server. So if you're interested in that, please do consider that. I would really appreciate it. These videos take a long time to make, lots of planning, so yeah, I would really appreciate that support. Anyway, let's get straight on with the video. Alright, so first of all, please ignore that little crosshair. It's only because I don't have my flight controls connected, as we don't need them in this video. So please do ignore that little crosshair. In fact, it might help me out because I can use it to point at things. So I can always be pointing at things. But we're going to start here on the taxiway, because this is the part that's pretty much the same throughout the world. And that is going to be on the taxiway. So you can see that the taxiway has these green lights running along them. As you can see, these green lights running all the way along them in both directions. If I just scroll around, you can see it, they go in that direction as well as that direction. And we have these blue lights that are sort of elevated right there. You can see these elevated blue lights out on the sides. So what do these lights mean? Well, these lights are, as you've figured out, the taxiway lights. And as you can see, they don't actually show from certain angles. You have to be at a certain angle to be able to see them. So a pilot would be able to see them from the cockpit of an aeroplane, but if you're looking at them sort of from a really high angle, you can only see some of them. That's actually how they are in real life. It's just so that they don't get too confusing, because you get these lights everywhere. On the other hand, those centerline lights may be disappearing for you as you're looking around in your X-Plane or whatever install you're looking in. In real life, obviously, they will disappear as well. These blue lights, however, remain the same. So you can see that the blue lights will always be visible. Apart from maybe even when you're directly overhead, they are visible. I'm actually thinking of changing my preset to make these easier to see. Should I consider that? I would need to go back in time a little bit. Let me have a quick look at something. Let's see if that makes it easier to see these lights. Ignore the errors. That does not make it any easier. No. Let's go back to that then. Absolutely fine. No worries whatsoever. Okay, so We've got the edge lighting right here. These are called the edge lights. Very, very simple. These are the same all around the world. So you have these blue lights that will mark the edge. So the lights you need to get used to are red lights, orange lights, white lights, green lights, and blue lights. You've got 5 lights that you're going to need to get used to. So the blue lights mark the edge of a taxiway, not a runway, a taxiway. You then have the green lights that mark the center lines of the taxiway. So, for example, even when you're turning, you can see even when you're turning, it does mark the turn-offs on the taxiways. Okay, following along so far? Good. Let's move on from the taxiway to... Ooh, what should we move on to? I'm just thinking what's going to be the best part to get to. Could we go to... Yes, let's go on to this actually. Let's go, since we're sticking with the taxiway, we're going to have a look at other bits of taxiway lighting. Now, we have these lights here. These lights right here. These are guard lights for the runway. See these yellow lights that span across the width of the taxiway? Those are guard lights for a runway. So they are telling you that there is a runway ahead or a holding point, or you are on a holding point. Some of them, you'll see them at holding points. So for example, across some of these, you might see them. Now this one doesn't have them, but some of them may have them. So this is basically a holding point light. Now what there also is, which there might be down on that end. I know there's supposed to be some down at Whiskey, so we'll pop down to Taxiway Whiskey, see what we can see. But these are obviously guiding you up to a holding point to a runway, but there are also some that go on the side. Now they're called guard lights, otherwise known as wigwags, because, well, you'll see. If we see one, you'll see why they're called wigwags. Any along here? Nope. This one has... this one does have wigwags, but they're on the ground. Okay, this one has wigwags on the ground, so you can see that these are critical lights. Now, these lights will only be at a runway, I believe. So this is obviously an ILS critical area, so that's why it's flashing across there. So that's warning you of entering a critical area towards a runway. I'm looking for the wigwags. I know in real life there are wigwags right off this taxiway, because I've seen them for myself. So let's see if they're on this in this. No, that's disappointing. Ah well, what a shame. What a shame. On this maybe? This might have wigwags flashing again for the ILS critical area. This one doesn't even have guard lights, never mind. But anyway, since we're on this side now, so the wigwags, I'm sure I'll be able to show you when you see them in, I think Heathrow will definitely have them. So those runway guard lights are alternately flashing yellow lights on either on each side of the taxiway, like I said, so there and there as guard lights, or across the taxiway flashing over. So those are warning you of close proximity to a runway. So that's what those ones are. Is there anything else on that? I think that's pretty much it. Then we have stop bars and lead-on lights. Now, stop bars and lead-on lights are quite interesting, because I don't think I can show you in here. But a stop bar, for example, would be, you see these green lights here? We've got green lights along here that are turning yellow. I'll explain why they turn yellow in a moment. But you can see that they are green for past the critical. Let's go before the critical area. Then they're going to be definitely green. There you go. They are green all the way. I'll explain the green and yellow in a moment. A stop bar would come across, for example, that ILS critical area. It would be a red bar with no lights. That means that the aircraft goes up to that red bar and does not go any further. Now that is actually not just coming up to a runway. That could be at any holding point if it's been installed. So a stop bar is literally, you could say to an aircraft, taxi to, in this case, taxi to runway 9. Yeah, taxi to runway 9er, follow the lights. So what would happen is they'd have green lights. The pilot would be following the green lights up to a red bar and then stop at the red bar. And when it's safe for him to proceed, the red bar, the lights across the taxiway would switch off. That's 2 lights on the edge, and I think it's going to be 5 lights across the middle. There may be more than 5 lights across the middle, but it's definitely 2 lights on the edge and then some across the middle. And the green lights would continue. Those are lead-on lights. So those are really important too. What do you have after that? We have, of course, these lights, the ones that we're looking at right now. We've got the yellow and green lights. That's the wrong button. I've gone back into the aircraft. That's a problem. Let's go. All right, let's go over to this side because it's easier. All right, let's have a look at lead-on lights. Sorry, not, yeah, the lead-on lights, taxiway lead-on lights. Let's see if there's any of the wigwags along here. Not there, that's for sure. They've got the wigwags across the ground again. But anyway, you can see that after the wigwags, the lights change from green on the center line to a combination. So a change in color from yellow, green, yellow, green. So that is the taxiway center lighting when you're within an ILS critical area. So when the taxiway is within this ILS critical area, like so, you will see that the lights change from green to yellow and green, giving you an indication that you are within that area, which means that if an aircraft was in that area, it would provide some sort of obstruction, so it would present an obstruction to an aircraft that's trying to land or take off. So that is where that is identified like that. So the yellow, green, yellow, green. Now pilots are advised not to stop in this area. So even, for example, coming in on this runway, a pilot would be advised to stop here and hold here as opposed to hold there if they need to be in the ILS critical, if they don't need to be in the ILS critical area, because that is now a part of a taxiway that is in a critical area, which is going to affect the ILS systems of a pilot landing or taking off. So there we go. What else is there? Well, I've said the blue lights, that's all fine. The guidance system, I can't explain the guidance system because I can't show you that guidance system. Everything else, I think that's the taxiway fully completed. Yep, that's the taxiway fully completed. Moving on from the taxiway. By the way, this guidance system is, the guidance system I'm talking about is at Cat 2 and Cat 3 runways, Cat 2, Cat 3 airport operations. But I'll show you that at some point. Now, if there are airports where there are loads of taxiways without route guidance, you will have intersection lights. So you have yellow lights, 3 steady yellow lights symmetrically about the taxiway center. So you'd have a yellow light there, yellow light there, yellow light there. I'll see if I can show you them at Heathrow. When we go to Heathrow, I'll see if I can show you those. But when pilots get to those lights, when they're on, basically it means give way. It's a give way light. So if there was a crossing straight across here, let's say, or like that one over there, you'd have 1, 2, 3 lights there, 1, 2, 3 lights there. As a matter of fact, that is a holding point, isn't it? That may be a holding point right there anyway. I could see a holding point. Alpha 4, maybe? Alpha 5? That is Alpha... Oh, Alpha 7. Okay. That's Alpha 7. So you can see there's a holding point here. Now, more than likely there would be, if this was an intersection that needed it, you would have 1, 2, 3 amber lights across, or yellow lights across, which means that if air traffic is going across here, so an aeroplane is going across there, they have the right of way. There'd also be lights on that side, but obviously that isn't the case here. Let's move on now to the runway lighting, and this is where things are going to get interesting. You can already see there's some flashing lights there. We've got different colored lights on this side. You can see that we've got red lights on this side, quite clearly red, and we're going to have green lights on the opposite side. You can see those lights were amber. These lights are red. So I'm going to explain what all of these are before going to Heathrow, trying to see what we can do at Heathrow and Southampton. And we'll have a look at the approach lighting system at this runway 2. So let's zoom out so that we can get that approach lighting system in our view. We're looking to go out about 3,000 feet. In fact, there we go. That's the start of the approach lighting system. Can take a screenshot like that if I wanted to, I guess. There we go. Or I suppose the correct screenshot would be that one. Okay, so here is an approach lighting system, one of a few types that we're going to have a look at. So the first approach lighting system that we're looking at, this is designed for this is a typical Cat 1 system. So Cat 1 is where you're landing visually. It doesn't have auto land systems built in or anything like that. So we've got the PAPI indicators, of course, you can see them. I've explained those before, I'm not going to explain them now. Let's have a look at this approach system, then we'll go further up. So 3 lights, we're going to have 3 lights all the way. Those are called the centerline. That's the centerline bar? Yeah, I think that those are called the centerline bar. So this is the centerline bar right there. As we get closer, this will go from 3 to 2 to 1. So you can see that that's gone to 1 right there. It starts out from, if I remember correctly, it starts out from 3,000, is this 3,000 feet? 3,000 feet. 3,000, 2,000, 1,500. Yes, that seems right. Okay, so this is 3,500 feet out. So we're going to start from 3,500 feet out, and these lights are every 100 feet in, I think. No, that's not right. Let's get that right. Let's get that right. Each one of these lights are 100 feet. Yeah, that's right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, okay, got it. 3,000 feet, 2,500 feet, 2,000 feet, 1,500 feet, 1,000 feet, and then there's the runway. 500 feet and then the runway. Okay, yep, that's more like it. There we go. So this starts at 3,000 feet, and so that's showing the 3,000. So that's why it's got 3. 3 is designating you at that 3,000 feet mark. This is the first line, and again, these are Cat 1, so you'll see that they'll have a certain number of lights out on each side. So in this case, we're going to get 8 lights, I believe. So 8 lights on that side, 8 lights on that side, 3 lights in the middle, giving us a total of 19 lights. Right, moving forward. We now go to the next marker. That's where the localizer beacon is. This is now at 2,000 feet. So you've got the 3 lights in the middle, but now after that they're going to go to 2. And you can see still we've got, oh sorry, we've taken a light off either side. So now we've got 7 lights, and 3 lights. So now we've only got ourselves, how many lights? 17 lights. Yeah, 17 lights only. Now we're down to 2, and again you can see that the 2 is still marking the center line of the runway. So between the lights is now the center line of the runway. Moving forward, still getting thinner. Look, you can see we've lost another light off the side. So that's giving us the warnings of each 500 feet that we're getting closer. So that's another light off the side. 6 lights, and 2. So we've got 14 lights. As we get to 1,000 feet from the runway, 1,000 feet from the runway, these center lights are now completely just single, and we've got 5 lights there showing like that. So that's 11 lights, 500 feet from the runway, in this case with a displaced threshold. So now it's built into the ground, as you can see, so aircraft can actually run over them. So it's actually built into the ground, but there it is, a single light, and then 4 lights is all we have now. So that's showing 9 lights in total, giving us a 500 foot indication away from the runway. And then we've got the last bits. So we've got 500, 400, 300, 200, 100, start of the runway. And then we've got the lights I'll explain in a moment. So that is the approach lighting for a Cat 1 approach into an airport. Then let's move forward now. We have these flashing lights here. You see the flashing lights? Those are the runway end identifier lights. So they're the runway end identifier lights, runway end identifier lights, REIL. They are bright white lights that flash at the threshold of a runway. Then you will have 4 lights that are slightly raised up, just like the side lights of the runway. Green lights there and there, and those are threshold lights, as well as a strip of threshold lighting across the threshold of the runway, indicating the start of the touchdown zone. Now, interestingly, this one doesn't have lights across the touchdown zone because it is a Cat 1 runway, which I don't understand. I'm fairly sure this isn't a Cat 1 runway. But anyway, we'll get down and explain the touchdown lights in a few moments once we get to that. If there was a taxiway leading onto this, what we would have instead is we would have blue lights along this. Instead of the red lights, we would have the blue lights along this all the way. So, because we don't have a taxiway, it's not blue, and the taxiway, the blue lights would also be smaller, and that's basically a starter extension. Now, what do these red lights mean, you might be asking? Well, this is saying that this area is unusable for landing aircraft. This is the end of a runway, but it's indicating with a threshold, so you've got the green and the red, the 4 red lights on either side, that is indicating a displaced threshold in this area. So you can see the red lights all the way along, indicating a displaced threshold, stating that that area of the runway is not suitable for landing. So that is what that means. I'll explain that maybe a little bit in a while. Once we get to Heathrow, I think it'll be easier to explain at Heathrow. I might have to even do this runway lighting in 2 parts. So, once we've got past the threshold, we're now within the lighting systems of the runway itself. Now you're going to notice that we have, move back slightly so I can see this properly. There you go. Starting 100 feet away from the threshold. So you see the white lights there? 100 feet. Every 100 feet you will see a light. A white light which, if you look carefully, turns yellow towards the end, but we'll get to the end in a minute. So you got these white lights along the end. Those are the runway marker lights, essentially. So the runway edge lighting system. Now they can be high intensity, low intensity, or medium intensity, and they're basically known as HIRL, high intensity runway lights, MIRL, medium intensity runway lights, and LIRL, so low intensity runway lights. So we'll continue along this and we'll explain what these are. So we have the center lighting on this runway, which is where it's odd, because I don't think a Cat 1 would have center lighting. But there we go. So we've got runway lights down the center. Each one of these, I believe, are in, is it 25-foot increments? I think 25, 50, 75, 100. I think it's every 25 feet. Yeah. So every 25 feet we have a light, a center light, and you'll see that those will change color. In fact, if you look carefully, you can see that they are changing color already. So let's run down this, and you'll see that these remain the same color all the way down the runway. However, if we look at the edge lights, you can see that the edge lights are starting to turn yellow at that point there. Can you see them starting to turn yellow? You can see the yellow lighting. That yellow light means that you've got 2,000 feet to the end, 3,000 feet to the end of the runway. So let's move forward all the way to the end. And you'll see that there are a few things that change. 2,000, not 3,000. Sorry. The first one, the first indication of problems, or that you're coming up to the end of the runway, is this. The white lights at the center start swapping from white to white and red, white and red, white and red, white and red. That is 3,000 feet before the end of the runway, or halfway down the runway, whichever is shorter. That's important to remember, whichever is shorter. When you get to 2,000 feet, which is where we've reached here, you can see that these white lights have turned amber or some sort of yellowy color. That is warning for 2,000 feet to the end of the runway. So you can see there, 2,000 feet end of the runway. And then the last 1,000 feet of the runway, the last 1,000 foot of the runway will be completely red. So you can see that these lights now are completely red at the center line. So you can see right there, they go from red, white, red all the way to the end. That is telling you that you have 1,000 feet of runway left, usable runway to go. And then you'll see at the end, you've got red lights at the end of the runway. That is marking, those 4 red lights on either side mark the end of the runway. So there you go, you're now in the end of the runway. Now, if we had a stop area, so for example, a stopway, emergency stopway, what would happen is there would be red, it would be red lighting all the way along, all the way around. So maybe 4 like that, but then red lights along like these, continuing, and then red lights all the way across and red lights there. That's an emergency stopway. But that is basically runway lighting for a Cat 1 runway in the United Kingdom. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move over to a Cat 2, Cat 3 runway by swapping. Actually, let's have a look at maybe a simple runway if I can find one, and then we'll move over to a Cat 2, Cat 3 runway. So make sure you stick around for the next few moments. Okay, so quickly to run you through this airport, we're now at Echo Golf Hotel India, that's Southampton Airport. And a couple of things to note here is, well, one, that road, but let's ignore that road for now. A couple of things to note here is the way this is actually set up. This is set up in a slightly different fashion. So you can see it doesn't have the whole 3, 2, 1. In fact, it just has 5 lights, and then it just remains as 5 lights all the way. And it only has warnings for, as you can see, 1,000 feet before, and that's it. So it starts off at 1,500 feet before, I think. Hold on, let me have a look. Because it's a short runway. No, it's not even 1,500 feet before. It's pretty much 1,000 feet. What's that? Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not even 1,000 feet. It's about 700 foot before. Yeah. So it's 700 feet before. There, 600. That's the marker for 500 feet, like so. Again, still marking the center line, and then we're directly over to the runway. Now look at this one. We've got the red lights again, just to show that little display threshold, and we've got the green lights there. But also, you'll notice we've got red lights just there. Now those red lights are basically an indication because of the turnaround due to the taxiways. So you can see that there is a taxiway in blue, and that is just because we have a turnaround section. So I'm not actually going to explain how that part works, because that's not really important, but it is important to know that there is a difference in the lighting systems, just so that you are aware of it. But as you can see on this one, it's very, very simple. It's almost the same, but it's much shorter. And also you'll notice this over here. Those are locator beacons. So the locator beacons I'm not actually going to go into, because I think, actually, should I just go into them? Sure, I can go into them, why not? These are aerodrome beacons, so you've got locator beacons and identification beacons. So you'll have a 2-letter identification code in green, which is at aerodromes where there's loads of aerodromes in the same vicinity, which is not this one. And, or is it that one? No, that's not the one. And then you'll have a location beacon. So a location beacon is going to be flashing white and green where there's lots of background lighting. So as you can see here, I mean, we're in Southampton, so there's loads of light pollution in the area. So that flashing white and green is actually telling us that this is an airport in an area with lots of background light. And then if there wasn't lots of background lights, if it was in the middle of nowhere, it would be flashing just white. And that's simple. Identification beacons will be flashing codes in green, and government facilities will be flashing codes in red. So that's what you need to know about those beacons. That's all from this section. Let's move on to... is there anything else here that may be of interest? No. Let's move on to Heathrow Airport, where we'll finish today's episode. So we won't get to JFK today. Okay, so for the final part of this video, we find ourselves at London Heathrow Airport on the approach to runway 27 right, Echo Golf Lima Lima, like I said, and we're going to be looking at this runway, which, as you can see immediately, looks different from the runway at East Midlands Airport and the runway at Southampton Airport. So what are we looking at here? Well, again, we've got the same approach in terms of distance. So you can see we've got the same approach distances, which is 3,000 feet or 900 meters if you prefer to have 900 meters. And then we've got the same markings at 2,500 feet, 2,000 feet, 1,500 feet, 1,000 feet, 500 feet, and then the threshold. But then we've got additional lighting, and you can see that the lighting up there is different, and then we've got lighting along there. So this is a Cat 2 or Cat 3 system. So again, we've got the three lights at the middle, that's the center line, and then we've got the light bars indicating how far away we are. Then we've got these red lights. Now, these red lights are supplementary approach lights. See these red lights? They start from 1,000 feet before the threshold of a runway, and they continue alongside the standard centerline lights all the way. Now the difference here is also it moves from, as you can see, it doesn't go 2 and then 1 in the middle as the 1,000 feet. It goes into this situation here, which is 5 lights in the middle, obviously the center one being the bang on the center line, and then 3 red lights, or sometimes 4 red lights, 3 or 4 red lights along the side. And that is, these red lights are called barrettes, and then we've got obviously the center line right in the middle. So again, at 1,000 feet, we have 2 red barrettes starting, which is a supplementary approach. 500 feet, same bar across, but with the red lights, of course, and then 5 lights there. And same thing here, we've got the threshold lighting once again all the way across. The runway end identifier lights, not a problem. And then we have the touchdown zone light. So this is the last part to cover in this video. I may have to do a supplementary video as well. Got supplementary lighting, do a supplementary video. So these lights start from 100 foot up the... Is it 100 foot or 50 foot? Up from the threshold, and continue all the way down 3,000 feet down the runway for the touchdown lighting or touchdown zone lighting. I'm just thinking, is it 3,000 feet down the runway? Yes, 3,000 feet down the runway or halfway down the runway, whichever one is again longer. Yep, that's correct. Okay, good. So, right, center lighting extends from 900 meters. Yep, that's fine. I'm just looking at the CAA regulations just in case I'm saying something wrong. Obviously, don't want to get anything wrong here. So, yep, that is correct. It's all the way down 3,000 feet. So you'll have these 3 lights. Now that indicates the touchdown zone of an aircraft. So a pilot would want to touch his aircraft down in this area. So within this area is where he wants to touch down his aircraft. If he thinks that, or she thinks that her aircraft is going to touch down beyond that area, it's probably a good idea to do a go around. So the length of the touchdown zone, like I said, is 3,000 feet, but it also determines the length of the obstacle-free zone that is established to protect Cat 2 and Cat 3 approaches that are below the decision height. So a go-around beyond the end of the touchdown zone lighting is not contained within that obstacle-free zone. So that's why it's important that if you do not think that your aircraft is going to land in this touchdown zone, you need to go around, because it cannot be guaranteed that the area beyond that is going to be obstacle free as you try and do a go around after the decision height. Now the last thing that there is to point out, which I don't think is in X-Plane, is in the United Kingdom we also have rapid exit lights. Now rapid exit lights are indicators in yellow on a runway. Let's see if we can find one. This is a rapid exit here, so if we turn around... No, we don't have rapid exit lights. Yeah, that's definitely a rapid exit. So you can see how these lights are all looking, by the way. You can see that the touchdown zone lights have ended. Let's give you a decent view of this. The touchdown zone lights have ended, and you can see the lights are white here. But if we're going in the opposite direction, at those touchdown zone lights, you can see, because it's 3,000 feet, the lights have turned from white to white and red. But looking again at this rapid exit as I was, over here there is supposed to be some markers. Now we can have yellow lights that go 1, 2 yellow lights, and then 3 yellow lights on the side of the center line. So you'll have 1 there, 2 there, and then I guess 3 would be on the next one. And that's indicating to a pilot that there is a rapid exit coming up that he or she can take. And you can see that rapid exit there. Again, the green and yellow lighting indicating that we are within an ILS critical zone. And I think that's everything for runway lighting. I'm pretty sure that's everything for the runway lighting now. So if a pilot was to be lined up, ooh, let's find a decent place for the lining up of the pilot. Don't have a displaced threshold on this side. Is there a displaced threshold on that side? There is. Alright, let's go over to the other side to end this video, and we'll have a look at the displaced threshold just to give you an idea as to what a pilot would see if he was sitting in the flight deck of his aircraft. It's going to take a while. This is a long runway. I think this is a... how long is this runway? I think... It's a 20... No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. Don't be silly. I was going to say it's a 27,000 foot runway. It's not a 27,000 foot runway. We could, you know what? That being said, we could probably measure it. We could measure the length of the runway using the knowledge that we have. So we've got 3,000 feet. It's a 9,000 foot runway. That's better. 3 kilometers. Yeah, it's about a 9,000 or 10,000 foot runway. Actually, I think I've seen the runway showing as 12,000 feet. But anyway, so a pilot sitting, let's say he's come along here, right up to this spot. As a matter of fact, this should actually have blue lights here too. There should be blue lights along this. But there you go. He's got his aircraft over to this spot, right over here. So you can see he's got the lighting of the color telling you he's in the ILS critical area. There are the threshold lights coming up, or the approach and threshold lights. But let's say he's stopped his aircraft here. So what is he or she going to see? Well, they're going to see this, as you can see. So you're going to see the red lights there showing that they are within a displaced threshold. Then they'll see the green lights showing that that's the start of the threshold. Then they'll see the runway identifier lights. They'll be seeing these lights at Heathrow in particular, and any Cat 3 and Cat 2 landing systems showing supplementary approach lighting, which they can ignore. And then they'll see the touchdown zone lights, and then the rest of the runway where they can continue to go. So that is what they're going to see, and that hopefully is now making complete sense to you. You can understand what all of these lights are. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please remember to hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos on the ground up advanced flight tutorials. Leave a comment in the comments box below letting me know whether I did a good job in explaining this. And of course, in the next video, I'm going to have to look at American systems. So we'll be looking at the FAA regulations as opposed to the CAA regulations. And then if I can get hold of maybe the Australian ones, if they're different, I might have a look at the Australian ones. But it's really important to understand the way that these runways work, and hopefully you now do. Don't forget to support me on Patreon, www.patreon.com/ecgadget. Your support would be massively appreciated, as I mentioned beforehand, and again I'm going to mention now. These videos do take a very, very long time to produce, so hopefully you guys can consider supporting me on there, and I would really, really appreciate that. Last but not least, do follow me on Twitch, www.twitch.tv/ecgadget for live streaming. That's all from me, and I'll see you guys next time in the ground up advanced flight tutorials.